The storage room smelled like cardboard and cooking oil. Between stacks of rice bags and boxes of soy sauce sat an old upright piano, its wood faded and keys yellowed with age. This was where Lisa practiced every night after the restaurant closed. She wiped her hands on her apron, still damp from washing dishes. Her fingers were rough, marked with small burns from years of working in the kitchen. Not exactly the hands of a pianist, but that didn't stop her from sitting down on the worn wooden bench and opening her beginner's book. It was almost midnight. The restaurant had finally emptied out after a busy Friday night. Her parents were in the front counting the day's earnings. Her younger brother was probably already asleep upstairs. This quiet hour belonged to Lisa alone. She had started learning piano only a year and a half ago. At 23, she was older than most beginners. While other students at Mrs. Thompson's studio were children with small hands and endless energy, Lisa came to her weekly lesson tired from work, sometimes smelling faintly of ginger and garlic no matter how many times she washed. Mrs. Thompson never minded. She was a patient teacher, perhaps in her late 50s, with gray hair always pulled back in a neat bun. She understood that Lisa was different from her other students. This wasn't a hobby forced by ambitious parents. Lisa wanted this. Really wanted it. The piano had belonged to Lisa's grandmother. When she passed away 3 years ago, the family almost sold it. They needed the money, and the instrument took up valuable storage space. But Lisa begged them to keep it. She promised she would learn to play it. Her father thought it was a waste of time. Her mother stayed quiet but looked worried. They needed Lisa in the restaurant, not dreaming about music, but Lisa made it work. She woke up at 5 in the morning to help prep vegetables. She worked the lunch rush, took a break for her piano lesson on Tuesday afternoons, then came back for the dinner shift. After closing, when everyone else went to bed exhausted, she stayed downstairs and practiced. Her fingers moved slowly across the keys now, playing through a simple exercise. The notes weren't always clean. Sometimes her tired mind made her fingers stumble, but she kept going. There was something about music that made her feel alive in a way nothing else did. Growing up, Lisa had always heard music in her head. Her grandmother used to hum old songs while cooking, melodies from the old country that seemed to carry entire lifetimes in them. Lisa would stand in the kitchen as a little girl, swaying to those wordless tunes, feeling something she couldn't name. When her grandmother got sick, she stopped humming. The house became quieter. After she died, Lisa realized how much she missed those sounds. That's when she decided to learn piano. Maybe she could bring some of that music back into the world. Mrs. Thompson had been thrilled to take her on as a student, despite her age and rough hands. During their first lesson, she asked Lisa why she wanted to learn. Lisa tried to explain about her grandmother, about the silence that felt too heavy, about the melodies still floating in her memory. Mrs. Thompson just nodded and said, "Then let's begin." The first few months had been frustrating. Lisa's fingers didn't cooperate. Reading music felt like trying to decode a foreign language. She would practice the same simple song for weeks, making the same mistakes over and over. There were nights she wanted to quit, wondering if her father was right. Maybe this was foolish. Maybe some people weren't meant to play music. But then something shifted. Around month 6, her hands started to remember. The notes on the page began making sense. She could play a simple melody without stopping every few seconds to figure out the next note. It wasn't beautiful yet, but it was music. Real music that she was creating with her own hands. Mrs. Thompson noticed the change too. She started assigning slightly harder pieces. Nothing too challenging, but enough to keep Lisa growing. And Lisa practiced them all night after night in that storage room, surrounded by the smell of rice and spices. Her grandmother's old piano slowly coming back to life under her touch. Last week, Mrs. Thompson had made an announcement that changed everything. She wanted to enroll Lisa in the regional music festival. It was a competition, she explained, but also a celebration. Musicians of all ages and levels performed. It would be good experience, a chance to play for an audience. Lisa's heart had jumped into her throat. "I'm not ready for that," she said immediately. Mrs. Thompson smiled. "You're more ready than you think. I'll choose an appropriate piece for your level, something simple but lovely. You can do this, Lisa." The festival was in 6 weeks. 6 weeks to prepare. Mrs. Thompson selected a beginner's arrangement, a gentle piece that suited Lisa's current abilities. It was pretty, manageable, nothing too ambitious. Perfect for someone who had only been playing for 18 months. Lisa took the sheet music home and taped it to the wall above the piano. She stared at it during her lunch breaks, memorizing the patterns. At night, she practiced it over and over until her fingers knew every note. Her family noticed her increased focus. Her mother asked if everything was okay. Lisa told them about the festival. Her father frowned. "Will this interfere with work?" he asked. She promised it wouldn't. Her brother thought it was cool and asked if he could come watch. Her mother said nothing but squeezed Lisa's hand, a gesture that meant more than words. As weeks passed, Lisa grew more comfortable with her piece. She could play it smoothly now with only occasional mistakes. It wouldn't win any prizes, but it was honest and earnest. Mrs. Thompson seemed pleased with her progress, but Lisa couldn't shake a feeling of nervousness that grew stronger each day. She had never performed in front of people before. The thought of sitting on a stage, all eyes watching, hands possibly shaking, made her stomach twist. What if she froze? What if her rough, kitchen-worn hands betrayed her at the crucial moment? She practiced harder, 2 hours each night instead of 1. Her fingers developed calluses on top of calluses. Her mother worried she wasn't sleeping enough. Her father complained that she was using too much electricity keeping the lights on so late. But Lisa couldn't stop. This performance meant something. She wasn't entirely sure what yet, but it mattered. The festival was being held at the city's concert hall, a beautiful old building Lisa had walked past hundreds of times but never entered. It seemed like a place for other people, professional people, people who belonged in rooms with crystal chandeliers and velvet seats. But in 6 weeks she would walk through those doors. She would sit at a grand piano on a real stage. She would play her simple tune for strangers who actually chose to listen. The thought terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Late at night, alone with her grandmother's piano, Lisa sometimes closed her eyes and imagined that moment. She could almost hear the echo of the concert hall, feel the smooth keys of an instrument that wasn't worn and tired. She wondered if her grandmother would be proud. She hoped so. 3 weeks left until the festival. Lisa placed her rough hands on the keys and began to play her simple tune once more. In the quiet storage room surrounded by rice bags and restaurant supplies, the music rose into the air like a promise. This was only the beginning of something she couldn't yet see. But she was ready to find out what came next. 3 days before the festival, Lisa's phone rang during the morning prep. It was Mrs. Thompson's daughter calling from the hospital. Her teacher had collapsed at home the night before. The doctors said it was a severe case of pneumonia. She would be okay, but she needed to rest for at least 2 weeks. Lisa's hands went numb. She stood in the kitchen holding her phone, vegetables half chopped on the cutting board. Mrs. Thompson was in the hospital. 3 days before her first performance, the one person who believed she could do this, her mother noticed her face. "What happened?" she asked. Lisa explained. Her mother wiped her hands on her apron and pulled Lisa into a hug. "Your teacher will be fine. And you'll be fine too. You've been practicing so hard." But Lisa wasn't sure. Mrs. Thompson had been her anchor through this whole journey. Every doubt, every stumbling block her teacher had guided her through. Now she would walk onto that stage completely alone. That afternoon she went to visit Mrs. Thompson at the hospital. Her teacher looked small in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, but her eyes lit up when Lisa entered. "Don't you dare think about backing out," Mrs. Thompson said before Lisa could even speak. Her voice was weak but firm. "I wasn't going to," Lisa lied. Mrs. Thompson smiled. She knew. "You're ready for this. I wouldn't have entered you if I didn't believe that. The piece suits you perfectly. Just play it the way you've been playing it, and you'll do wonderfully." They talked for a while. Mrs. Thompson gave her some last-minute advice about posture and breathing. When visiting hours ended, Lisa squeezed her teacher's hand. "Get better soon," she said. "I will. And I want to hear all about your performance. Every detail." Lisa left the hospital feeling both better and worse. Better because Mrs. Thompson still believed in her. Worse because the weight of doing this alone suddenly felt heavier. That night in the storage room, she sat at the piano but didn't immediately start playing. She just looked at the keys, at her rough hands resting on them. 3 more days, 72 hours until she would walk onto that stage. She began playing her assigned piece. It flowed smoothly now, almost too smoothly. She had played it so many times that her fingers moved automatically. The notes were right, the timing was correct, but something felt missing. It was technically fine, but somehow empty. Lisa stopped mid-phrase and sighed. Maybe that's just how beginner pieces were supposed to sound. Simple and straightforward. Nothing fancy. She was overthinking it. She reached to close her music book when something slipped out from between the pages. Another piece of sheet music tucked inside. Lisa picked it up and looked at it. The title was in a language she didn't recognize, but the music itself spoke clearly enough. It was more complex than her assigned piece, with runs and dynamics that would challenge her current skills. There was a sticky note attached in Mrs. Thompson's handwriting. For next month. I think you'll love this one. Lisa stared at the music. Next month. This was what her teacher had planned to teach her after the festival. It was definitely above her level. The left hand alone looked complicated, and there were sections that would require coordination she wasn't sure she possessed. She should put it away. Focus on her assigned piece. Don't complicate things. But her fingers moved to the keys almost on their own. She started playing through it slowly, sight reading. She made mistakes immediately, stumbling over the unfamiliar patterns. But something about the melody grabbed her. It reminded her of something she couldn't quite place. Then it hit her. Her grandmother's humming. Not the exact tune, but the feeling of it. That same aching beauty that made you want to cry and smile at the same time. Lisa played through the first page, then the second. Her mistakes were frequent, but underneath them she could hear what the piece was meant to be. It was a story, her grandmother's story maybe, or her own, about leaving home and missing it, about love and loss and hope all mixed together. She glanced at the clock. Almost 1 a.m. She should sleep. The restaurant would be busy tomorrow and she needed rest before the festival. Instead, she played the piece again. And again. Her tired mind struggled with the faster sections, but her heart understood the slower parts. The melody settled into her bones like it had always belonged there. By 3 a.m, she could play the first half without stopping. Not well, but continuously. Her eyes burned with exhaustion, but she couldn't stop. This piece meant something. It felt right in a way her assigned piece never had. The next day passed in a blur. Lisa worked through the lunch rush on autopilot, her mind still on that melody. Customers ordered, she served them, but part of her was already sitting at that piano, fingers moving through those complex patterns. That night she practiced until dawn. The simple assigned piece felt wrong now. It was safe and pretty, but it wasn't her. This new piece, this impossible piece she had only discovered yesterday, somehow felt more honest. By the second evening, she could play most of it from memory. Not perfectly. She still made mistakes, still stumbled in the difficult sections. But the emotion was there. The story was there. When she played it, she wasn't just hitting notes. She was saying something real. Her brother found her in the storage room at 2 a.m, still practicing. That's different from what you were playing before, he said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Yeah, Lisa admitted. It's harder. It sounds better, though. More like you? Lisa looked at him surprised. What do you mean? He shrugged. I don't know. The other one sounded nice but kind of boring. This one sounds like it matters. After he went back to bed, Lisa sat staring at the sheet music. Her brother was 13 and knew nothing about music theory. But he was right. This piece mattered. It felt like the music she had been hearing in her head all these years, finally finding its way out. She pulled out her festival registration papers. She was listed to play her assigned beginner's piece. That's what the judges would expect. That's what was appropriate for her level. Playing something harder would be risky. She might embarrass herself. She might fail spectacularly. But playing the safe piece now felt like lying, like showing up to tell your story and reciting someone else's words instead. Lisa looked at her grandmother's piano, silent in the dim light. She thought about all those nights of practice, all those rough mornings in the kitchen, all the times she wanted to quit but didn't. This whole journey had been about finding her voice, about bringing music back into her life after losing her grandmother. Playing it safe wasn't why she started learning piano. The festival was tomorrow. 1 day away. Lisa made a decision that was probably foolish, possibly disastrous, but felt absolutely necessary. She would play the new piece. Not the simple safe one she had practiced for weeks, the one she had known for only 2 days. The one that lived in her heart instead of just her fingers. She practiced through the night one final time. The sun rose over the city, painting the storage room in pale gold light. Lisa's eyes were red with exhaustion. her fingers aching, her back sore from hours at the piano bench. But she knew what she had to do. Tomorrow she would walk onto that stage and play the truth, even if her hands shook and her memory failed. Even if she crashed and burned in front of everyone, at least it would be honest. She closed the piano lid gently and whispered to the empty room, to her grandmother's memory. To herself, "Okay, I'm ready." But she wasn't sure if she believed it. The concert hall looked like a palace. Lisa stood outside the entrance, staring up at the stone columns and arched doorways. She had walked past this building 1,000 times, but never imagined she would actually go inside. Definitely never imagined she would perform here. Her family stood beside her. Her mother held her purse with both hands, nervous. Her father checked his watch, uncomfortable in the dress shirt he rarely wore. Her brother bounced on his heels, excited. They had closed the restaurant for the afternoon, something they almost never did. That alone made Lisa's stomach twist with guilt and pressure. "We should go in," her mother said gently. Lisa nodded, but her feet didn't move. Inside those doors, everything would become real. No more practice in the storage room. No more safety. Just her and a piano and hundreds of strangers watching. Her father noticed her hesitation. "You don't have to do this if you don't want to," he said. His voice was gruff but kind. "No shame in changing your mind." For a moment, Lisa considered it. She could turn around right now. Go back to the restaurant. Forget this whole crazy idea. No one would judge her. But then she thought about Mrs. Thompson in that hospital bed believing in her. About her grandmother's piano waiting in the storage room. About all those late nights practicing when her fingers ached and her eyes burned with exhaustion. "No," Lisa said. "I want to do this." They walked through the doors together. The inside was even more overwhelming than Lisa had imagined. The lobby had marble floors that echoed with footsteps. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, crystal pieces catching the light. Everything was polished and perfect and far too fancy for someone who spent her days chopping vegetables and washing dishes. People filled the space, all dressed nicely. Parents with their children, some kids holding instrument cases, others clutching sheet music. Lisa saw a girl who couldn't have been more than 8 years old, already looking confident and bored. Like performing in concert halls was just another Tuesday for her. A volunteer at the registration table checked people in. Lisa got in line, her registration paper clutched in her damp hand. Her heart hammered so hard she wondered if people could hear it. When she reached the front, the volunteer smiled. "Name, please?" "Lisa Chen," the woman scanned her list. "Ah, yes, here you are. Piano, beginner category. You're performing—" She checked her notes. "The simplified arrangement of Meadow Song, lovely choice." Lisa's mouth went dry. That was her assigned piece. The simple one, not the one she had been practicing for the past 2 days. She should say something, tell them about the change, but the words stuck in her throat. "You'll be performing in about 90 minutes, the volunteer continued. "You can wait in the side hall. There's a practice room if you need it, but it's first come, first served. Good luck." Lisa took her registration packet and moved away from the table. Her family followed her to the side hall where other performers waited. The room buzzed with nervous energy. Kids ran scales on portable keyboards. Parents gave last-minute pep talks. A teenage boy sat in the corner with headphones on, eyes closed, fingers moving silently through his piece. They found seats in the corner. Lisa's brother immediately pulled out his phone, bored already. Her mother fussed with Lisa's hair, smoothing it down. Her father sat silent, looking out of place and uncomfortable. "I need to use the practice room," Lisa said suddenly. Her mother nodded. "Of course, dear. We'll wait here." Lisa found the practice room down a hallway. 3 people were already inside, taking turns at an upright piano. She added her name to the list on the door and waited. Her turn came 20 minutes later. She had exactly 10 minutes. She sat at the bench and placed her hands on the keys. They were cold and unfamiliar, not like her grandmother's worn piano. She took a breath and began playing the piece she had just learned, the one she had decided to perform instead of her assigned song. Her fingers stumbled in the second measure. She pushed through. The melody came out rough and uncertain. The coordination wasn't there yet. Her left hand lagged behind her right. The runs in the middle section were messy. Someone knocked on the door. "Time's up." Lisa stood, her confidence crumbling. What was she thinking? She had practiced that piece for maybe 12 hours total. She was about to humiliate herself in front of hundreds of people. This was insane. She walked back to the waiting area in a daze. Her family looked up expectantly. "How was it?" her mother asked. "Fine," Lisa lied. They sat in silence for a while. Lisa watched other performers come and go. Some looked confident, others terrified. She wondered how many of them had completely changed their piece 2 days before the performance. Probably zero. Probably only an idiot would do that. An announcement came over the speaker. The performances were starting. The volunteer called the first name. A young boy, maybe 9 years old, walked through the door that led to the main hall. His parents stood and watched him go, hands clasped together. Lisa's turn was getting closer. She counted the names ahead of her. 15 people, 14, 13. Her hands started sweating. She wiped them on her dress, the nicest one she owned, bought specifically for today. It felt too tight now. Everything felt wrong. "Lisa Chen, you're next after this performer," a volunteer announced. Her mother squeezed her hand. "You're going to be wonderful." Her father cleared his throat. "Just do your best. That's all anyone can ask." Her brother looked up from his phone. "You've got this." Lisa stood on shaky legs. She could hear music coming from beyond the doors. Someone playing a complicated classical piece, fast notes cascading like water. They were probably a real musician, someone who had trained their whole life. What was Lisa doing here? The music stopped. Applause followed. Then her name echoed through the speaker system. Lisa Chen performing Meadow Song. Lisa walked toward the doors. The volunteer smiled and opened them. Beyond was darkness broken by a single spotlight illuminating a grand piano on stage. The audience sat in shadow, hundreds of faces she couldn't quite see. She walked forward, her footsteps echoing on the wooden stage. The piano gleamed under the light, its black surface perfect and intimidating. She had never played a grand piano before, only her grandmother's old upright and that practice room instrument. Lisa sat on the bench and adjusted it. Her hands hovered over the keys. The audience waited in silence. She could feel their expectation, their polite attention. They thought she was about to play a simple beginner's song, something cute and uncomplicated, but that's not what Lisa was going to play. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her chest. Her hands trembled. This was the moment. She could still play the assigned piece, save herself from possible disaster, play it safe. But that's not why she started this journey. Lisa closed her eyes. She thought of her grandmother humming in the kitchen, of Mrs. Thompson believing in her from that first lesson, of every late night in that storage room, every callus on her fingers, every moment she chose music over sleep. This wasn't about playing perfectly. It was about playing honestly. She took one deep breath, opened her eyes, and let her fingers fall to the keys. The first notes rang out into the silent hall. Not Meadow Song. Not the simple piece she was registered to play, but the one that told her story. The one that felt true. There was no going back now. The first notes floated into the darkness like a question. Lisa felt the keys beneath her fingers, smooth and responsive in a way her grandmother's piano never was. The grand piano sang where the old upright had only spoken. She heard someone shift in their seat. The audience had expected something simple and short. Already they could tell this wasn't it. The melody moved through phrases that were too complex for a beginner. Lisa felt their confusion ripple through the hall. Her left hand came in, supporting the melody with chords that pulled at something deep and old. This was the part that reminded her of her grandmother's humming. The part that felt like home and heartbreak mixed together. Then she hit a wrong note. It rang out sharp and obvious. A clang in the middle of beauty. Lisa's heart lurched. Every muscle in her body wanted to stop, to apologize, to run off the stage. But Mrs. Thompson's voice echoed in her memory from one of their lessons. When you make a mistake in performance, don't stop. Keep going. Make it part of the story. Lisa kept playing. She didn't pretend the wrong note hadn't happened. Instead, she let it hang for just a moment, acknowledged it, then wove the next notes around it like she was stitching a tear in fabric. The music continued, and somehow that mistake became part of the emotional landscape, a stumble in the journey, but not the end of it. Her fingers moved through the first section, muscle memory taking over where panic tried to intrude. She could feel the audience leaning forward now. That confused rustling had stopped. They were listening, really listening. The piece moved into the second movement, slower and more contemplative. This was the part Lisa had practiced least. the part that still felt uncertain under her fingers. She played it carefully, each note deliberate. It wasn't flashy or perfect. It was honest. She thought about all those nights in the storage room, the smell of rice and cooking oil, her rough hands aching after a long shift, still finding the strength to practice, her father's skeptical looks, her mother's quiet support, the weight of her grandmother's absence that had started this whole journey. All of that flowed through her fingers now. The melody climbed higher, building toward the section she had feared most. A run of notes that her hands had stumbled over again and again in practice. She approached it now, and for a split second her mind went blank. She couldn't remember what came next, but her fingers did. They moved across the keys almost on their own, finding the pattern even as her conscious mind panicked. The notes weren't clean. They weren't perfect, but they were there, carrying the music forward like a river that keeps flowing even when the current gets rough. Lisa realized she was crying. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she played, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The music had taken over. This wasn't about hitting every note correctly anymore. It was about pouring everything she had into these moments. Every hope, every fear, every late night and early morning, every sacrifice. The piece moved into its final section. The melody returned, transformed now. What had started as a question became something like an answer. Not a happy ending exactly, but something more real. An acceptance. A peace with the journey itself, regardless of where it led. Her hands swept across the keys, the left hand and right hand finally working together. The coordination she had struggled with falling into place in these last crucial measures. The music swelled, filling the hall with sound that felt bigger than Lisa, bigger than her rough hands and kitchen-worn fingers. Then the final chord. She held it, letting it ring out into the darkness. The sustain pedal kept it alive, vibrating through the air until it slowly faded into silence. Lisa lifted her hands from the keys. The hall was completely quiet. For a moment that felt like an eternity. Nothing happened. Lisa sat frozen, tears still wet on her face, her heart hammering. She had done it. She had played the piece. Made mistakes, yes. Stumbled, definitely. But she had finished. The silence stretched on. Lisa wondered if she should stand. If she should leave. Maybe the audience was too shocked by how bad it was to even respond. Then someone started clapping. One person. Then another. Then suddenly the entire hall erupted in applause. Lisa looked up, stunned. People were standing, rising to their feet, applauding. The sound was like thunder rolling through the space. She saw faces in the crowd now, illuminated by the stage lights reflecting back. Some people were wiping their eyes. Others were smiling. In the back, she spotted her family. Her mother had both hands pressed to her mouth. Her father stood with his arms crossed, but even from the stage, Lisa could see his eyes were shining. Her brother was clapping so hard it looked like his hands might hurt. Lisa stood shakily. She didn't know what to do. Mrs. Thompson had taught her to bow, so she did, awkwardly, almost stumbling. The applause continued. She straightened up, overwhelmed, and just stood there like an idiot, tears streaming freely now. A volunteer eventually appeared at the side of the stage, gently guiding her off. The applause followed her into the wings. When the door closed behind her, cutting off the sound, Lisa's legs almost gave out. She leaned against the wall, shaking. "That was incredible," the volunteer whispered. "I've been working these festivals for 12 years, and I've never seen a response like that." Lisa couldn't speak. She just nodded, trying to catch her breath. The judges would deliberate now, compare all the performances, assign scores. Lisa knew she wouldn't win. Couldn't win. Her technique was too rough, her mistakes too obvious. There were kids out there who had played flawlessly, pieces far more difficult than hers, with the polish that came from years of professional training. But somehow, that didn't matter. She had done what she came here to do. She had played her truth on that stage. That was its own victory. Her family found her in the hallway. Her mother hugged her so tight Lisa could barely breathe. Her father patted her shoulder, which was as emotional as he ever got. Her brother said, "That was awesome," about 15 times in a row. "That wasn't the piece you were supposed to play, was it?" her mother asked finally. Lisa shook her head. "No, I changed it at the last minute." "I'm sorry. I should have told you." Her father surprised her by laughing. "You always were stubborn, even when you were small. Once you decided something, no one could change your mind." They walked back to the waiting area. Other performers looked at Lisa as she passed. Some smiled. Others looked curious. One older woman, elegant and clearly a professional music teacher, stopped her. "Excuse me, dear. That was your performance just now?" Lisa nodded, nervous. "I wanted to tell you, in all my years attending these festivals, I rarely see someone play with such genuine emotion. You have a gift. Not technical perfection, not yet. But something more important. You have something to say." The woman walked away before Lisa could respond. They sat through the rest of the performances. Some were technically brilliant. Some were emotionally moving. All were better trained than Lisa. She listened and appreciated them, no longer comparing herself. She had played her piece. That was enough. Finally, after what felt like hours, all the performances ended. The judges deliberated. The volunteer announced they would reveal the results shortly. Lisa sat with her family, exhausted. Her hands ached. Her back was sore. She felt completely drained and somehow more alive than she had in years. Whatever happened next, she had already won something that couldn't be measured by scores or rankings. She had found her voice. She had been brave enough to use it. The volunteer returned to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have the results." The volunteer held a sheet of paper, reading through the results. Third place in the beginner category went to a 10-year-old girl who had played a complicated Bach piece flawlessly. Second place went to a teenage boy whose technical precision had been impressive. Then came first place, awarded to a young prodigy who had clearly been training since she could walk. Lisa applauded with everyone else. She felt no disappointment. Those performers deserved their recognition. They had years of training and natural talent that she simply didn't have. And now, the volunteer continued, we have a special recognition this year. The judges have decided to award a distinction that we rarely give out. This is for a performance that moved us in a way that transcends technical scores. Lisa's mother grabbed her hand. The award for most inspiring performance goes to Lisa Chen for a piece that reminded us all why we love music in the first place. For a second, Lisa didn't move. She wasn't sure she had heard correctly. Her brother had to push her shoulder. "That's you, go!" Lisa stood on shaky legs and walked to the front. The volunteer handed her a certificate and a small trophy. It wasn't as big as the first place awards, but it was heavy in her hands. "Real. Would you like to say anything?" the volunteer asked. Lisa looked out at the audience. All these strangers who had listened to her stumble through a piece she had barely known. She should say something eloquent, something memorable. "I only started playing piano 18 months ago," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Someone in the back called out that they couldn't hear. Lisa cleared her throat and tried again, louder. "I only started playing 18 months ago. My teacher is in the hospital right now. But she believed I could do this. My grandmother, who owned the piano I practice on, she passed away before I could play for her, but I felt her with me today. And my family closed our restaurant to be here, which is a really big deal." She paused, emotions threatening to overwhelm her again. "I made a lot of mistakes up there. I changed my piece at the last minute, which was probably stupid, but I just wanted to play something true, something honest. So thank you for listening, and for this award. It means everything." The applause started again as she walked back to her seat. Her mother was crying. Her father looked uncomfortable with all the attention, but proud in his own quiet way. Her brother held up his phone. "I recorded your speech. It was pretty good." After the ceremony ended, people approached Lisa. Parents asked about her teacher. Other adult beginners wanted to know how she found the courage to perform. A few young students looked at her with something like curiosity, maybe realizing for the first time that you didn't need to be perfect to make music that mattered. The elegant woman from earlier came over again. "I teach at the Riverside Music Academy," she said, handing Lisa a card. "We have a scholarship program for dedicated adult students. I'd like you to audition. Would you be interested?" Lisa stared at the card. Riverside Music Academy was one of the most prestigious music schools in the city. "I work full-time at my family's restaurant," she said. "I don't think I could afford it even with a scholarship." "The scholarship covers tuition completely. You would need to commit to practice time and attend classes, but many of our students work. We make it work. Think about it." The woman walked away, leaving Lisa holding the card like it might disappear if she blinked. On the drive home, her family was quiet. Her mother kept looking at the trophy sitting in Lisa's lap. Her father drove carefully, thoughtfully. Her brother finally broke the silence. Are you going to audition for that school? I don't know, Lisa said honestly. It would mean less time at the restaurant. Less help for you all. Her father surprised her by speaking. We managed before you decided to learn piano. We'll manage if you study more. Your mother and we came to this country so you and your brother could have opportunities. Real opportunities. Not just work in a restaurant your whole life. But I don't mind the restaurant, Lisa said. We know, her mother said softly. But your grandmother, she always said you had music in you. Even when you were small, she would have wanted this for you. Lisa felt tears threatening again. She had cried more today than she had in months. They pulled up to the restaurant. It looked small and ordinary after the grandeur of the concert hall. But it was home. The place that had supported her, literally and figuratively, while she chased this dream. That night, Lisa visited Mrs. Thompson in the hospital. Her teacher was sitting up now, looking better. Her daughter had sent her a video of Lisa's performance. She had watched it 3 times already. You changed the piece, Mrs. Thompson said. It wasn't a question. I'm sorry. I know I should have told you. I know it was risky and probably stupid, and it was perfect, Mrs. Thompson interrupted. I'm not saying I recommend my students change their pieces 3 days before a performance. But you understood something important. Music isn't about playing the right notes. It's about communicating something real. You did that today. Lisa showed her the trophy and told her about the scholarship offer. Mrs. Thompson's eyes lit up. Riverside is an excellent school. You should absolutely audition. But I've only been playing for 18 months. I'm not good enough. You're good enough to move an entire concert hall to tears. You're good enough to make judges create a special award. Stop thinking about what you're not and start seeing what you are. Lisa left the hospital with the business card in her pocket and something like hope in her chest. The next few weeks were a blur. Lisa continued working at the restaurant, but she called Riverside and scheduled an audition. She practiced every night, working on both technique and emotion. Mrs. Thompson recovered and resumed their lessons, now focused on preparing Lisa for the academy. The audition was terrifying. The panel of judges was intimidating, but Lisa played the same piece she had performed at the festival, mistakes and all. She played it honestly. 2 weeks later, she received a letter. She had been accepted with a full scholarship. Her parents threw a small celebration at the restaurant. Regular customers came by to congratulate her. Someone had printed out a news article about the festival that mentioned her performance. They taped it to the wall near the register. Starting at the academy was overwhelming. The other students were younger and more skilled. Lisa often felt out of place. But she remembered that moment on stage when she chose truth over perfection. She brought that same approach to her studies. She continued working weekends at the restaurant. The rhythm of her life became a balance between chopping vegetables and playing scales, between serving customers and attending master classes. It was exhausting, but it felt right. Months later, Mrs. Thompson suggested she start teaching. Just beginner students, she said. Adults who think they started too late. Lisa's first student was a 40-year-old nurse who had always wanted to learn piano. During their first lesson, the woman apologized for her rough hands. I know they're not pianist hands, she said. Lisa smiled and held up her own hands, still marked with small scars from kitchen work. Neither are mine, but they can still make music. That's what matters. She taught the nurse a simple melody. Together, they played it on Lisa's grandmother's old piano, the one that had started everything. The notes weren't perfect. The timing was off. But it was honest and real and full of possibility. As Lisa listened to her student practice, she thought about how far she had come. From someone who almost sold her grandmother's piano to someone who used it to teach others. From someone afraid to dream to someone living a dream she hadn't even known she could have. The storage room still smelled like cardboard and cooking oil. But now it also smelled like hope, like second chances, like the kind of music that matters most, the kind that comes from people brave enough to try, even when their hands shake and their hearts race and everything seems impossible. Lisa looked at her student struggling through the simple melody and smiled.